A black CEO was set up on live TV, but his response shocked everyone. The bright studio lights illuminated the sleek, modern set of the Sterling Hour, one of the most watched morning shows in the country. This was the kind of program that suburban households played in the background while sipping coffee and scrolling through their phones. At the center of it all sat Valerie Sterling, a sharp and polished host known for her no-nonsense interviews. She had built her career by disarming politicians, grilling Hollywood elites, and throwing curveballs at CEOs who thought they were in for a friendly chat. Today, her guest was Nathaniel Cain, the founder and CEO of Sentient Dynamics, a tech giant leading the A revolution. His company's innovations were transforming hospitals, law enforcement, and financial markets. But none of that was the reason people were tuning in today. The real reason? Nathaniel Cain was a black man in a space historically dominated by white executives, and that alone made him a target for subtle but calculated scrutiny. Dressed in a crisp navy blue suit, Nathaniel sat calmly in his chair, unreadable as the countdown to the live broadcast began. No nerves, no anxious twitches. This wasn't his first time on national television, and it certainly wasn't his first time dealing with people like Valerie. The red light of the camera blinked on. Valerie turned to the audience with her practiced, smooth voice. "Good morning, everyone. Today, we have a fascinating guest. A man who has built one of the most influential companies of our time, shaping how we interact with artificial intelligence. But with power comes responsibility and controversy." She pivoted to Nathaniel, her smile polished but carrying an edge. "Mr. Cain, thank you for being here." Nathaniel nodded slightly. "Appreciate the invitation." Valerie's smile widened. "Let's get right into it. Your rise has been impressive, some even say unprecedented. A lot of people look at your success and wonder, is this a testament to merit, or to a system trying to correct past injustices? The audience barely reacted, but the weight of her words was clear. It wasn't just a question, it was bait. A calculated attempt to make him stumble. But what Valerie didn't know is that Nathaniel had already won before she even started. Nathaniel exhaled slowly, already recognizing the game she was playing. He had faced worse in boardrooms filled with skeptical investors. This was just another test. "That's an interesting way to phrase it," Nathaniel said, his voice smooth and controlled. "Are you asking if I earned my success, or if it was handed to me?" Valerie let out a soft, practiced laugh, the kind designed to make a guest feel silly for even suggesting such a thing. "Oh, not at all, Nathaniel. I'm simply pointing out that companies today prioritize diversity initiatives. And while that's a good thing, some people our viewers include wonder if these programs tilt the playing field in ways that benefit some more than others." A low murmur rippled through the audience. The tension was subtle but growing. Nathaniel didn't stiffen, didn't flinch. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, as if genuinely considering her words. "Let's break that down," he said evenly. "You're suggesting that efforts to include historically excluded talent somehow erase merit. If that were true, then why, when I walk into a room full of CEOs, am I still the only one who looks like me?" His words landed like a thunderclap. Valerie's carefully composed expression wavered for the first time. "Well, it's a complicated issue," she started, but Nathaniel wasn't finished. "Is it?" he asked, his voice measured. "Because it sounds simple to me. What's happening is that, for the first time, qualified people are finally getting their shot. But when someone like me reaches the top, no one asks how many hours I worked, how many sacrifices I made, or how many nights I spent building something from the ground up. Instead, they ask, did the system give you a handout?" A single clap echoed in the audience before it was quickly stifled. Valerie straightened in her seat. "I think what people are wondering—" "No," Nathaniel interrupted smoothly. "I think what you're wondering is if I deserve to be here." For the first time, Valerie's practiced smile faltered. Nathaniel leaned back, crossing one leg over the other, completely unbothered. "I get it," he continued, his tone almost conversational. "It's easier to believe someone like me was handed something than to admit that the system kept people like me out for decades. But here's the thing, Valerie, I don't need anyone's permission to sit at this table." The studio felt smaller now, the air heavier. But Valerie wasn't done yet, and she was about to make a mistake she couldn't take back. "Well," she said, regaining her composure, "some might argue that, in industries like yours, companies lower the bar to meet certain expectations." A sharp inhale rippled through the audience. A line had been crossed. Nathaniel studied her for a moment, then leaned forward. "If you think the bar has been lowered, then let's raise it right here, right now." The audience was hanging on every syllable. "You say diversity programs create unearned opportunities. Let's look at the numbers," he continued. "Right now, there are exactly 6 black CEOs in the Fortune 500. 6 out of 500. If the bar was really being lowered, wouldn't those numbers be different?" Silence. Valerie's fingers twitched slightly on the cue cards in front of her. Nathaniel leaned back, voice steady. "You know what I had to do to get here, Valerie. I had to build a company from nothing. I had to pitch investors who assumed I was the assistant when I walked into the room. I had to outperform my competition 10 times over because I knew that if I failed, I wouldn't just be seen as Nathaniel Cain failing. I'd be seen as proof that people like me don't belong in this space." Valerie forced a chuckle. "Nathaniel, I think you're making some broad generalizations. The reality," he cut in smoothly, "is that people only ask these questions when someone who looks like me succeeds. When a white executive takes over a company, no one assumes they got there because of a diversity initiative. No one ever says, 'Hey, do you think you got this job because someone lowered the bar?'" He let the words hang, a mirror reflecting back at her. Valerie opened her mouth, but the words didn't come. Nathaniel exhaled lightly, shaking his head just a fraction. Then he delivered the final blow. "You don't actually care about merit," he said quietly, looking her in the eye. "You care about keeping people like me from having a seat at the table. And that, Valerie, is the real conversation." The silence in the room was deafening. The audience wasn't just watching anymore, they were witnessing something. And that's when everything changed. By the time the interview ended, clips of the exchange were already flooding social media. Within hours, it was trending nationwide. Some called it a masterclass in handling bias. Others scrambled to spin the narrative. But one thing was clear: the world had seen the truth.